morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Michael Bryan podcast. I'm your host, Michael A. Bryan, and joining me today, all the way from Florence, Italy, is Mr. David Maloney. David, thank you so much for being here.
It is a pleasure. Thank you for your invitation.
Most definitely, David. David, I am so excited to dive into the conversation that you and I are going to have today. But before we get there, for those of you who this is your first time joining us here on the Michael Bryan podcast, this is a podcast where I bring you interviews from yoga teachers, healers, as well as mindfulness-based leaders around the world who aren't just changing their own lives through their practices, but they're also greatly impacting the lives of their students everywhere. So if you want to continue to be a part of the momentum that we're building here on the Michael Bryan podcast, please, yes, do go down below and subscribe to the Michael Bryan podcast, whether you're watching it here on YouTube or listening to it on Anchor FM or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever, as well as please do like and share this podcast with your other yoga and mindfulness-based friends, because more and more people around the world need to hear from these amazing teachers like Mr. David Maloney. Now, David, once again, I'm very, very deeply honored and excited to be here speaking with you today at all, because I've seen a lot of your work on social media, and I actually was first introduced to your work on Instagram. And so once again, thank you so much for being here and for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here and speak with me now.
It's a pleasure, absolutely.
Now, David, before we dive into all of the wonderful things we're going to talk about, I know that you are a senior advanced 2 Iyengar yoga teacher, and I know that you've been practicing Iyengar yoga for quite a while. So I want you, David, to just take this time to tell our listeners and viewers a lot about yourself, who you are, where you are, and how did you come into the practice of Iyengar yoga?
I started more than 25 years ago. Actually, it was in 1995, and seriously, I started to practice Iyengar yoga in 1996. I am originally from Sardinia, that is an island in Italy. And in that time, in the 90s, you couldn't find any teacher over there. And not only about Iyengar yoga, about yoga in general. So in that time, I was a sportsman, as you want to say. I was doing martial arts. I was competing in karate. And some of my teacher was saying that yoga could be very helpful to mind focus, to be in a better condition about flexibility and strength. So could be something very helpful as a second side to the practice of karate, because some other karate practitioner did in the 70s, something like this. So I was just curious. And considering also that my mother was practicing yoga through a book when I was very young, 5 years old. So I had already this contamination, my first meeting with some movement of the body, of some philosophy, and my mother was saying to me something. So this was triggering in me the curiosity. And so I was trying to find some good book about yoga in that time, until I found the good book of Guruji. And then it was really like, oh, yes, this is the one. I would like to study with this man. But in that time, nothing was really brought, advertising where the guru was. So I need some time to understand how to connect with the institute and with him. And yes, in the start, it was just a practice to help myself in karate. But in less than 1 year, I find out that the progress was also just studying with myself and just following the instruction in the book, that the progress was very good. And then I was very much interested to understand more. But in one point, I understood that through the book, it was the limit, because I was pushing too much, not having really experience in the practice of yoga. So I was just following the sequencing that Guruji was giving in the end of the book, week after week. And in one point, this sequence became very long. You can be easily more than 4 hours and practice very advanced asanas too. So I was starting to shake in the body, and then I understood, okay, I think this is the maximum that I can do. Also, if I am I was in 19 years old, I was still before 20. So I said, okay, let's try to find something around. So I was looking for a teacher, nothing, I couldn't find anything until I find out that was some video advertising Iyengar yoga. And then in this video were also some little journal attached to that. And this journal was advertising the Iyengar Yoga Association in Italy. And it was just 5 years working in that time, 5-6 years. So I connect with them by telephone. And then they told me, no, in Sardinia, you cannot find anything. There is only Rome, Florence, and some other city. The association was in the start. Also, if the Iyengar yoga practice discipline was going on in Italy since the 70s. But the association were created in 90s. Yeah, in the 1990 precisely. So, okay, I said, okay, I need to continue with the book. No possibilities. I'm in Sardinia, so nothing to do. And but then I started to think with myself, why not try to find a contact with the teachers of the Italian association? And then I started to travel. Get some information, understand a little bit better. So I was starting to travel every month or when it was possible, up and down from the island, and the connection in the time weren't so good. So sometimes I should take the boat to arrive until Rome, and then from there arrive with the train until Florence. Sometimes just to be there 3 days took me 7 days to come back at home. And I was studying also in the university, and I didn't have so much economical support. And also because in that time, my family, particularly my father, he didn't know what yoga was really. So he was thinking, it's for sure some sect. I don't want to support you in these things. I don't believe in these things. So if you want to do it, you are adult to do it, but ask me anything. So on the start, I was just doing like this. So I was trying to do travel cheap, but having the contact as much as possible. And then the things gradually, fortunately, became better also with the prices, with the flights. And then it was easier to reach Florence and continue my studies and like this. And obviously, after I followed the teacher training like a student, and the wish to see the master was increasing more and more. So my first travel to Pune, to the institute, to see Guruji was in 2003. And so when I reached there, it was 85 already. And so I was thinking to be lucky to see him alive because old man. So I arrived there and I saw him. It was to see a legend alive. And for sure, you can have all kind of imagination about some man when you are reading about this person. You have a lot of people that are speaking about him. And sometimes can be also some image that then when you see the person, it's not that. You see, oh yes, it was bigger than it could be really. Instead, not. It was absolutely like it was brought, absolutely like the people were speaking about, and more. It was absolutely like everyone that were in the condition to see Guruji. You were absolutely impressed. And then I could work also following his teaching, because after a few years that he wasn't teaching at all, in that year, in 2003, he was teaching personally. He was giving a kind of intensive. Actually, he was teaching about the connection between the physical practice and the inner practice, exoterical practice. He was speaking about the layers of the bodies, the chakras, and all these kind of things. For me, it was difficult because I studied English at school, but I wasn't so much exposed to English. So when I started to go the first times in Pune, and particularly in 2003 was my first time, I couldn't understand so much, or I could understand for a while. And then after a while I was tired, and then my brain wasn't switching off, so I couldn't understand so well. And so it took some time, but my will, it was absolutely to keep going, to go every year there. And then I asked the permission to do it, so it was allowed. And then I was going once a year for a month, the first times, 2003 until 2007, I did like this, going there once a year for a month. And in 2008, I decided to stay longer. So my first time, 3 months. And obviously it was absolutely different, because all the time that you were going there once a year, for a month, you were starting to feel confident, and then it was the time to go. Instead, when you could stay there for 3 months, you were starting to be confident, and then still time was there available. And in particular way, in the month of September, in that time, weren't so many people. So it was a luxury, because we're Guruji, the close members of the family and the assistants, and that's it. So, and also the atmosphere was much more relaxed. So it was really a blessing to be there in that time. And in 2009, so the year after, that I was continuing from 2008 to stay every year, 3 months, like that. So he noticed me, and then he said, okay, since now, enough to stay there and do the practice that you want, you should stay close to me. And then whatever I'm teaching to anyone, to Abhijata or to some other students, or also to yourself, you should practice only this. Big blessing, big honor. So I was amazed, impressed, but it wasn't easy, because he had his style, and it was very sharp, and his teaching was very deep, but in the same time, it was difficult to catch, because okay, I was experienced, but I wasn't experienced about his direct teaching. That is completely different thing. And so sometime, his will was to transmit you what he was in himself, what he discovered, he wanted to transmit to the students, to everyone. And then if he was choosing someone, for sure, still more. So it could be also sometime craft. So it couldn't be not so easy to face the situation. And also because many times there were so many people around, you were feeling also these things that, you could be shy, or you could be scared that the people were thinking that you weren't doing the things so well, because the master could be also upset because you weren't catching the things. So many things, not only physical, but also in your mind, in your ego, and all these kind of things. So what I can tell about my process with Guruji, and that when you were going closer to him, because he was asking to you to stay closer, he was doing with you, working with some particular process. He was working with you physically, but not only. He was working with you psychologically, mentally. So you needed to break your resistance. And then if you were there still, you were continuing to go, you were staying and following what he was saying, fine. Otherwise, it was also ready that you could also be annoyed, upset, and go away. It was your problem, not his problem. And so for sure, I should face also this kind of resistance in me. But in one side, I was prepared because doing martial arts in my childhood and my teenage time, also in the karate, they are working on you in the discipline form, psychologically, and they are telling to you that this process is done for you to create some base, some grounding. So I was prepared. So I was thinking, okay, he's doing exactly the same. And so I faced, sometimes could be a little bit more difficult, sometimes could be easier. And then I proceed. And then gradually in the start, he wasn't neither speaking to me directly. He was saying to the assistant, hey, say to him to do this. And he was there. So after that, he was speaking to me directly, but screaming. And then after that, he started to have a different approach. And when he needed to tell me something more specifically, he was also calling to me, hey, come closer. So he could speak one-to-one. And it could be very rough. It could be also very sweet, particularly when he was speaking one-to-one. It could be very, very sweet, like a grandfather. So it was amazing. It was amazing to have this chance, this honor to be there in that time, in the right time, and with this will from his side to teach also to me, more or less directly.
David, that is truly a fascinating story, and I know that many people would have been both terrified as well as honored to have had that experience that you had to study so closely with Guruji. And before I ask you more about that, I want to go back to something that you mentioned initially about how you saw yourself coming up against this moment within your personal practice of studying from Lighton Yoga and coming to a place of shakiness of the body physically shaking in the practice, and then deciding that you needed to actually find a teacher. So were the first teachers that you found in Italy?
Yeah.
Okay. And for you, as you look back on that experience, what was the difference between that shaking in the body that you found based on how far you could take yourself versus now switching over to having a teacher?
For sure, my experience was the experience of some teenager, because I was 19 years old. And so what was the tendency? The tendency was, I want to push more. So I want to do as much as possible the more advanced poses. And then I don't want to follow so much what is before. And also, as Lighton Yoga, I was structured. So after a few weeks, you were already going some intensity. And then if you were following, I was following the programs, but it was very intense. Guruji said after many years that Lighton Yoga was edited, that he taught the book for someone that was committed like him. Only after I understood that could be too much intense. And for this reason, then other books came out. And obviously was always saying, the book is something to start, to be connected with something, but then as soon as possible, try to find a good teacher. So when I arrived to a real teacher, for sure I was doing so many mistakes. Some part of the body were too flexible, some other part of the body were too blocked. And then the breath wasn't right. And so many connections with, as the Iyengar yoga is doing, working from the peripheral part to the central part. It wasn't done like this. I was just doing in general. And then for this reason, particularly if you were doing more than 3-4 hours of practice, and then you were just going physically, like generally casually, without the understanding of the actions that in the book, they are not right. You don't find the actions in the book in Lighton Yoga. You find the general information. So you are just watching the picture. This is what I was doing. I was watching the picture. I was reading the general information. I was trying to do it. And then I noticed that with the teacher was completely different. The teacher could see where you were doing the mistake, so could explain how to do right. But when you don't have the right experience, also if the things is said to you, you don't understand. For this reason, the teacher is important because can help you, guide you step by step, and then can tell, okay, now it's better. No, now still not. You are not following, or you are not understanding, you are not perceiving. So for sure, it was very important to have this step. In such a way, first of all, any kind of injury could be avoided. And then to understand how to work right since the start, and so to create the foundation from where to proceed. So this is very important. So from the book, it's very difficult to learn. From my point of view, the book is something that can attract your interest, can give you the interest to start by yourself, but the book should give you the interest to find the teacher, really.
And when you went to Pune for the first time, were you already a certified Iyengar yoga teacher?
Yes, 1 year already.
So what was that experience like, going from essentially your teenage life studying and practicing Iyengar yoga from the book, to then finding a teacher, to then going to India feeling as if you had some level of proficiency, and then actually learning from Mr. Iyengar? What was the difference between those experiences?
When I found the first teacher in Italy the first time, I clearly understood that what I was doing before was nothing. It was just full of misunderstanding. I didn't have any idea what I was doing. And clearly I understood that I was doing nothing. So since that, I tried to create a foundation, traveling there, coming back at home, and then working at home with what I learned when I was going to Florence to learn. And then when I started to do the teacher's training, I had also much more possibilities to go with the certain frequency, and then I could stay and practice there, and then to follow the format of the teacher's training course. And so when I arrived to Pune, again, I was thinking to have already the foundation, then for sure I could get a lot, but the foundation were still there. And then I understood that I should start from zero again, because I'm not saying that what I learned before in Florence was wrong. No, it was good foundation, and when absolutely was giving me the capability to understand what Guruji wanted. Otherwise, perhaps I was just lost. So that was for sure some good thing, very good thing. But then Guruji was very, very fast. And then it was changing also, because it was evolving the system continuously. So many times, if you were with him, the year before, and then you were going back to him with the idea that he was continuing perhaps in that same way, perhaps wasn't. And then if someone could say to him, but Guruji, last year you said that. And then he said, that was last year. Now it's not the same anymore, because it was changing, it was evolving all the time. Whatever it was proficient, working good for him, he was letting, he was keeping as a base. Otherwise, if he was finding something that was working better, so the previous was removed, and then the new concept should be pushed and transmit and taught. So all the time, and also Guruji was like a volcano. Absolutely, he had this passion, and so this energy was coming through him, not only through the words, but from his personality. So it was absolutely a pleasure, was absolutely a luck time to be there when he had this energy to transmit. Also, if he was really old, as I said, the first time I was happy in 2003 to be in front of him and to have the chance to meet him at least once. But then I could study under him for 11 years. Amazing. I never thought that could be possible. And yeah, and until the last moment, it was very sharp mentally. And until almost the last moment, it was practicing. So it was example for everyone also. And this is something that we never should forget. Because many times when the master is not there anymore, there are the stories, the legends, and then you are trying to repeat what was said, but the freshness is not there anymore. So what was trying to transmit to the students, the informations, just as information are anything. You should get this, take this information, make this information part of you. You should elaborate it, and then after that you can transmit, and only after that this information are alive, and then can give something to the students. And you should be an example for the students as you are living, as you are teaching, as you are practicing. So this discipline as a teacher should be, first of all, the discipline of the student. As Guruji was saying, first of all, I am a yoga student before the teacher. So this is something that we should keep in mind. First of all, we should be student. Being student doesn't mean that you should continue to go to someone. You can also study by yourself, as Guruji was doing. He was a student, having his master, but then at one point he was continuing to study by himself. So this process is very important.
Something that you mentioned, David, that I think is really significant in studying Iyengar yoga is this concept of you thought you knew something, and then you realized that you knew nothing essentially. And then you thought that you knew something after you were certified, and then you went to India and then realized again that you knew nothing and had to start from scratch. And I think that that's such a humbling experience for a lot of us who practice and study Iyengar yoga, that we find when maybe we, I was telling you before we went on that I had started studying Iyengar yoga, or I had started practicing Iyengar yoga before I met my teacher, Lois. And I was like, oh, wow, you know, this information is so great. I know something, you know, I'm talking about the skin, I'm talking about the bones, like I know something. And then I'll never forget that I went to Lois for the first time, and it was Bakasana. We were doing Bakasana at a summer intensive, and I was talking about the hand position in Bakasana, and I said, Lois, I just heard from this other person that this is how the hand should be. And then I just heard from you that this is how the hand should be. And then I looked in Light on Yoga and I saw this is how the hand should be. Which one of the three of you are right? And I'll never forget what she said. She said, Michael, because you're so young and so inexperienced, you don't have the ability within yourself to handle diversity or to handle multiplicity. Because if you were a more mature practitioner, you would realize that the three of us are saying essentially the same thing. And that for me was the most, that for me was the most incredible thing in the world. And it made me realize that it didn't matter what sort of surface understanding I had. Oh, the knee should be straight, or the knee should be bent to form a square, or the shoulders are down and the arms, how the arms should lift, how the chest should lift. It didn't matter the sort of external anatomical awareness that I had about the shape of the pose. It had more to do with the experience, the internal energetic experience of the pose, and how I was searching to find that experience within myself, whether the hand was like this, or however, how was I searching to find an experience within myself within that pose, more than what was I trying to do with my physical body in the pose. And I cherish that teaching until this day because it continuously forces me to realize that I don't know anything, regardless of how long I teach or how many classes I teach or how long I practice. I don't know anything because if I go in searching for an experience, then every single time the practice is new and every single time there's something more to learn.
But Guruji was saying about that, you Western, you are stuck in your mind. You want always to have one answer. Depends. The asana can be done in so many ways. Depends which anatomical point you want to reach, or if you want to go beyond that, you want to reach some anatomical area, not anatomical, but organic area. So you are changing a little bit the actions. So you could do these kind of things in any kind of asana. Could be more supported, and then you can reach something. Can be less supported and do some particular action, and you can reach something else. So as also Prashantji is many times saying, we have the support, the props for the asanas, but the asana is itself a support for the anatomical body, organical body, and layer after layer, because the real effect of the asana should be to reach go beyond the emotional state and to work with it to your mind, to your consciousness. So the asana is a support for that. And before to reach that point, should work to the surface layer deeper and deeper and deeper. So depends what adjustment you are doing, and then you are reaching anatomically, organically, differently. So for this reason, someone is saying you should do this with for example, in Bakasana, the fingers like this, or the fingers like this, or press here on there. Why? Why we are saying the same thing, also if different? Because any teacher that is saying something, if his experience, want to reach in that pose some particular anatomical point, and could be different. Perhaps the focus is different. So, but it's not really right or wrong. There are shades, and you should be sensible enough to understand it. Sometimes the things can be also wrong, but the majority of the time, when it's said, the things is said from some experienced teacher, is more matter of shades.
Definitely, definitely. And I'm thinking about, say, even a pose like Utthita Trikonasana, and another concept. And truthfully, Lois is my only, and has for my entire Iyengar yoga life been my only frame of reference for the practice. But I'm aware that there are weeks when she is teaching forward folds, and that Utthita Trikonasana becomes a pathway towards a forward fold practice. And then there are weeks when she is teaching back bends, And that same Trikonasana becomes a pathway for a back bend practice because something else becomes emphasized. And there are weeks when she's teaching twists, and that same Trikonasana becomes a pathway to learning how to do twisting. And so this concept of shape shifting the pose so that the pose becomes the gateway to the very specific experience that you're wanting to have, and knowing that in that same Trikonasana, there's something that can be emphasized for your back bend practice, for your twisting practice, for your forward fold practice, and knowing that that possibility exists within all of the yoga asanas, I think is really such a rich thing that allows us to realize we can never stop learning within this practice of Iyengar yoga.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is also the refreshing things and the exciting things to continue, because the more you are going forward and you are in the path, the more you are understanding things. There are things that Guruji was saying to me years ago that I'm still discovering now, because in that moment perhaps I didn't have the maturity enough to understand, but these things were kept in me. And then also recently, oh, this is what he wanted to say. And at the same time, when he passed away, I was thinking, now what? I'm lost. I don't have him anymore. I was, for sure, I was continuing to follow the family. So Prashantji and Gitaji. And then they were amazing, and they are, Prashantji, amazing teacher, Abhijata, and the assistants of the Institute, amazing teacher. But my connection was very much with him. Also because he asked me, stay close, I'm going to teach you. So this connection was very strong. So when he passed away, I was just lost. I felt lost. But then, after the first moment that he passed away, and also months ahead, all the time that I was practicing, I was just feeling sad, and it was very difficult. And after that, okay, I was moving on, proceeding. And then I started to feel the things that he was teaching to me in the past, and perhaps I wasn't able really to open and to really understand, that were kind of flourishing. And then this was continuing. So I felt that what I did with him in that number of years is like a treasure still inside. And then it's kind of there working. And then obviously you should be disciplined and try to rediscover and observe in such a way these things is kind of teaching you from inside. So it's like he's inside me, or wherever, to other teachers that they followed him. And then as you are thinking what about was speaking about and teaching, then this teaching of him are continuing to coming out. So from my point of view, or my experience, okay, we have the new generation, and it's very great to have them. Very great. It's very important to have them. And to keep everyone together, to continue to proceed with the legacy and with the name of the Iyengar Yoga, and what they also understood about the teaching of Guruji, and they are giving to the students when they are teaching. So everything is very important. But thinking now to the experience that some like me had with Guruji, is very important to keep this, and not like something to say, oh, okay, this was a great time. No, it would be still a great time, because there is some huge value of what we had the possibility to learn, and these things could be constantly refreshed and brought to the students as well. So as the family said, every one of us that studied with Guruji understood something, took something. So when we are teaching to the students, some corner of perspective that was coming from Guruji can reach the students.
David, initially you said that you were coming into Iyengar Yoga from a martial arts background, which is a very physical training background, but also a very mental training background. And I know that I've heard from people that are not Iyengar Yoga practitioners that Iyengar Yoga seems like it is only a physical practice, insofar as we're so focused on what the correct way of doing a thing is that from the outside to the person looking at Iyengar Yoga who isn't an Iyengar Yoga practitioner, or even more so not an Iyengar Yoga teacher, the practice can have the tendency to seem very physical. And so when I hear you speaking and saying, it feels as if Guruji is inside you, and it feels as if he's guiding you in this way from within your body, from within your mind, from within yourself, essentially, what do you say to the person who from the outside is hearing that and saying, but it's just a physical pose, it's just straightening your kneecap, it's just reaching your arms, it's just this physical body. Why do you need someone? Why do you need to study with someone for 11 years to learn how to bend your knee? What do you say to that person who thinks that this practice is just physical?
If you are considering the Asian tradition, particular way, also about the philosophy and the spiritual discipline, for example, let's go to Zen or Buddhism in some particular branch. What they have as a support for the discipline of the mind, and then to go from the surface to the deeper part, they have some way to use the body as a support. So you have the Shaolin Kung Fu, for example. They are monks, Buddhist monks. So for what they were using that? Okay, could be so many other reasons, but mainly to have the body that could be so strong, and particularly to have the body so strong, you should go through a discipline that was building up your mind. So what he was doing, Guruji was doing the same. He was sculpting your mind and your consciousness working from your peripheral body. So many times in the yoga world, it said that yoga should be freedom, yoga should be peace and love, this kind of condition. It's just a format. If you don't have discipline, you are not free, because if you are not disciplined, you are just put constantly from your pulsion. Your senses are pulling you here and there. So this is not freedom. You are a slave of your senses. So what Guruji was teaching, he was teaching to you to understand how to work in the small part of the body, to create discipline in all these parts of the body, and to be able to do that, your mind should become sharp. All kind of resistance could come out from you. It's boring, I want to do something else, it's frustrating, why is it treating to me like that? All these kind of things could come out. And then you had few chance or choice, or okay, I'm quitting because it's boring and this and that, or it's frustrating this and that, it's treating me not so well. Or you could decide just to, okay, I'm there and I'm swallowing what is coming and that's it. Or understand why these things were coming out and why it was treating you in that way and the other way. Everyone could be treated differently, because not everyone had the same needs. So he was able to understand that as insight what that person needs to break the resistance. So it could be rough, it could be sweet, it could be anything what was needed. For sure, to understand, we have a material body, so we should go through the material body. And once you are able to create a control in the material body, and through the material body, you create a discipline, and then this discipline creates kind of inward journey inside yourself that can, in one point, have an effect in the emotional state, mind, consciousness. Okay, then that was the target of Guruji. It was the target was partially reached. But this discipline and this surface work was absolutely necessary. So you can, if the people are saying that what Guruji was teaching was just physical, just because they couldn't understand. Them understanding was too much in the surface to understand what he was trying to do. Only if you experienced what he was teaching really, but not experience once, years after years with commitment and respect about what he was doing. So you could have a transformation in yourself, and then absolutely you could understand, and then you can understand what he was teaching. Amazing things was that it changed. It was transforming himself. So when also he was saying when he started, he was young, and then it was very much physical work also for him. And then gradually they proceeded. Then it came in the interest to study also the pranayama and to study also the philosophy. But this work to clean layer after layer started by asana, by applying the connection from the surface of the body to the cartilage, to the joints, and to the deeper part of the body. And then naturally the breath was coming in some particular nature. So then need to study also some breathing technique in deeper way. And then it was starting to feel deeper the connection with the state of mind, with emotion, the observation of those. How can I study? How can I control? How can I understand? So let's go to Yoga Sutra. And then he was starting to find all the answer following there. In the start, he was saying, Yoga Sutra, very interesting me, like the other philosophy of yoga, because he was saying that he was a practical man. So these things, he wasn't finding the things so practical. But then when he got the understanding, he found these things very practical. Because what is philosophy and what is still more the Yoga Sutra, they are a guide. It's a practical thing, but you need to have the capability to understand. You should have the key to open these things that looks like secret or not connected, but everything is connected.
I was speaking with Gulnaz Dashti, one of the teachers in Pune a few days ago, and she was saying the exact same thing in terms of Guruji started off with light on yoga, which then became light on pranayama, which then became light on the Yoga Sutras, and how that was a sequencing of how we as Iyengar yoga practitioners could also approach this wider practice of Iyengar yoga. And there were a few things that she brought up. And one of the things that she said was that there's something very different about the Indian or the Eastern mentality that understands the guru-shishya relationship and that understands that sense of reverence and complete surrender to a guru. And I know that you said that you come from a martial arts background, and I wonder whether or not for you, did you find any quote unquote Western resistance coming up within you as you entered into that very specific learning space with the Iyengars? Or did your martial arts background give you a base for really understanding that guru-student relationship in a deeper way?
For sure, I was prepared, because also in the karate you have this the things with the master, and the master itself is someone that had some discipline with the other master. So also that in them there is this this tradition. For sure, when you are facing these things all the time, it's not easy, because is placing you just in front of your ego, is just breaking your ego, and then it's not easy at all. So you feel a lot of frustration. Also, if you understand that it's done for you, it's difficult. It's like a big stone on your head. But you have two chances: or you are accepting it, and then you are trying to work on it, or just you don't want to see. If you're choosing to see it, to face it, like all the scariness that you have, all the, actually this is the point. There are all your obstacles that are facing in front of you, like this. They are smashing on your face. This is what the teacher is doing, is waking you up, and then all the things that you have inside as obstacles are coming up on surface. And then once you are able to see and you are choosing to face it, you can solve it. So I'm very happy that this happened with him. Also, it wasn't easy at all, but I'm happy that I had this chance. And he did it so many times. He did it so many times.
Okay.
But it's necessary. Then in one point, you can do also by yourself. But there are people, like also in the Samadhipada, Patanjali, old Guruji were saying, there are people that they are born with that characteristic and the potentialities, and then can face directly what is said in the Samadhipada. For the other people, they should start for the Salamapada, because there are more basic instructions to follow first. So for sure, there are people that for sure they can follow easier, and then can go faster, and others that the majority need really to smash the face always in the same mistakes until you are able to proceed, to go beyond that.
Now, David, another thing that has been on my mind, and I've asked several advanced teachers this question, is have you found there to be any major difference in terms of the Iyengar yoga that you teach and the Iyengar yoga that you learned from India in comparison to Iyengar yoga within the world at large?
There is Iyengar yoga and Guruji's teaching. They are two different things. Iyengar yoga is what we are trying to place into the frame. And Guruji's teaching was beyond that. It was absolutely free under evolution, so you couldn't place into a frame at all. And Guruji was saying it's very important to avoid to stagnate. Your approach should be always fresh. And he was coming every day out with something new. It was unbelievable, because being there months after months, years after years, was never the same. But not never the same, like you say, someone is changing mind all the time, and is all the time saying something different. Absolutely was interconnected, and you could feel that it was an evolution. So it wasn't different, it was evolution. And you could be only amazed about that. So it was trying to help to the student to have this kind of approach, this attitude. This was is genius, actually, because he had this attitude and this nature to discover new things constantly, and he was absolutely curious like a child since he was old man. He was saying, I am 95 years old, not years old, years young, 95 years young. And for this reason, it was so brilliant and so effective and so impressive until the end. So we had this fortune, this luck to have this live example. And so why we are not taking it really like example? So for sure, he had these things. And then I was very impressed about that. In my side, I'm trying to keep in my heart as he was, the example that he was giving. And then he was all the time evolving. So I have my insights. For sure, I'm trying to elaborate whatever he taught to me. Nothing can be really Iyengar yoga, because Iyengar yoga is only what was coming from him. Iyengar's teaching. What I'm teaching is what I understood, my elaboration, and then it's coming out from me. For sure, should respect that logic, the logic of Guruji. Otherwise, cannot be said that this is the teaching of Guruji. But there is no way that I can teach exactly like him, because it's going out through me. So what he was saying, you should keep the teaching alive. You should assimilate it, and then you are elaborating it, and then you are transmitting. And then doing this way, as I was doing as well, he was inventing millions of ways to use the props. It wasn't a format. Needs change, the setup change. I have example like once he was following one student that was a practitioner, experienced a practitioner, but she had lower back pain constantly. And then she asked to be in the medical class. So what was done? They were following the format in the institute, and they were asking to this person to do this kind of sequence. So Guruji arrived in that day. She saw her, and then he said, "This sequence for her doesn't work." How come does it work? It's for lower back pain. It's different because this person have more practice. She's just making mistake in the actions, in the way how she's practicing. So I need to do something different for her. So yeah, these things that you could recognize when the average things could work, how should be adjusted a little bit, or how should be changed completely, depends on the case. So this is very important. It's not, this is the sequence and whatever is depends. So we need to have this kind of openness in mind to understand how the things have to be changed as the needs. You should have a super sharp laser eyes, because you should see where is the problem. And these things are not coming just with the information, it's experience. The knowledge is coming from the experience.
You know, David, one of the first videos I ever saw of you was a video on Facebook where you were doing all of the arm balances, I think. I think that you were in Shirshasana 3 and you were doing all of the arm balances from that. And it was such a dynamic and such a, there's a term we use in dance school. I was a professional dancer once, and there's a term, virtuoso. And, and is that an Italian word, virtuoso?
Yeah, virtuoso is an Italian way. Yeah, Italian word.
Right. So in dance school, when a dancer jumped in a particular way or did something in a particular way, particularly a male dancer, the term was, "Oh, that's so virtuoso. Look at that virtuoso thing he did." And I remember thinking that word when I saw you practicing these arm balances. And I think over the years of me being exposed to some of your work via social media, it's obvious that you have a very dynamic practice, and that you have this practice that, for me, what I compare it to is a video of Mr. Iyengar called Ultimate Freedom. where it's a black and white video and he's just getting into the poses in this dynamic virtuoso sort of way. And oftentimes we don't really see a lot of people who practice Iyengar yoga practicing in that sort of way. And I think that there's sometimes even a bit of resistance on the part of the practitioner to practice in that sort of way, when in fact, this is really a part of our tradition as well. It's not, you know, I've even seen people look at it and be like, oh, wow, well, that's how those other people practice, or that's how those, you know, reckless people practice or whatever. But this dynamic virtuoso approach to practice is also very much a part of our tradition as well. So my question for you is, as you've gone out into the world teaching Iyengar yoga, not just in Florence, but in the United States and everywhere where you teach, have you found the collective Iyengar yoga body or the collective Iyengar yoga student body able to receive this sort of dynamic practice, or have you had to modify things within your own teaching approach in order to teach people based on the version of Iyengar yoga that they have already learned?
First of all, I need to say that also by Guruji's word, he said, before to teach in the way that I'm teaching now, first I was teaching for many years dynamically. So he had the experience of the dynamical version, and then gradually it changed because the age was changing, and also the teaching was changing because the age of the students were changing. And then also arrived people with problems, and then have to be treated in different ways. So he didn't have one way, he had multiple ways, but it never said this is the only one. It was a big spectrum. So on the start of my coming close to the system of Guruji's teaching, my interest was mainly the performance. I liked the flow, I liked the advanced asanas, and then I wanted to become proficient and deep in that kind of practice. But then I understood that it wasn't the only way for yourself and also to help the others. So it was something. Then you should understand to be more introspective and to feel deeper organically and to feel the emotional state and whatever the static way. Then it was important to understand the minimal small actions to understand and to have really the discipline, physical and mental. And then it was all the understand of the logic of the props. And then it was all the logic understand to apply the action and the props in therapy. So many things. So it's like to say Iyengar yoga is this. No, Iyengar yoga is 360 degrees, different streets. And what is a little bit painful for me is then people are saying Iyengar yoga is something very soft for people that have problems, or furniture yoga, or just strong practice. Is not, but in the same time it is. It's part of the whole, the full. So we cannot take a corner. You need to take all the work that he did.
It's so refreshing to hear you say that because I know many younger people who, and even older people who feel as if they would never do Iyengar yoga because it's so boring and because it's so slow, and Iyengar yoga is only for old people, and Iyengar yoga is only for if you have problems, and the practice doesn't move, and then you do a pose and then you come and watch, and then you do a pose and then you go and you get props. You get 10 blankets, 3 bricks, 2 straps for every single thing. And so when I've heard about people's resistances towards Iyengar yoga in the world, a big part of it, I mean, 2 of the arguments is, well, one, it's very come and watch, come and watch, come and watch. I cannot actually practice because I'm spending so much time coming and watching that I don't feel as if I've actually practiced. And I don't feel as if my body has actually had that experience or my mind has actually had that experience to be absorbed. And then the other side of the spectrum is Iyengar yoga uses so many props that it takes away from my absorption because once again, I mean, I personally have been in other classes where the majority of the class was just getting props and bringing the props back. And then it becomes fun with props, but it doesn't actually become, have I actually challenged myself and have I actually gone inward in terms of the actual practice? And when I hear people's complaints against Iyengar yoga, oftentimes it is this exact same thing. There was so much of these other things and so little of the actual yoga that they didn't have the ability to get drawn within themselves. And then the flip side of that, that I found, especially in my own teaching of Iyengar yoga, is that when I try to go into spaces where people are accustomed to the come and watch, come and watch, come and watch, or where people are accustomed to going and getting the prop constantly, and I'm teaching in a way that isn't like that, then there's resistance towards that because they feel within their mind that after every pose, you do one side of Trikonasana, you come and you watch. You do the other side of Trikonasana, you come and you watch. And so I personally have found it a little bit difficult to navigate that concept.
People like what they are used to. So if they are used in some way, they like in that way. And then if you are bringing different things, this is not Iyengar yoga. Or if they are used to something that they like to move, and then you are bringing the concept of Iyengar yoga that is just static, and then they don't like Iyengar yoga. But really, the Guruji's teaching is nothing in one way and the other way. It's something that it's a full spectrum. So, and also, you can apply to the student that you have in the front. What is the need? What is the frame mind? So you can adapt and work with that person. Or you have a group. There is a general energy of the group or level of the group, and then you can work with that group. For this reason, when the group is too much mixed with people that work to dynamical work, people that want only mental take notes, people that want just to take props and bring back, that is becoming difficult. And then you should break your resistance. This is what Guruji was good, because we're having people from every part of the world with the expectation. And then if the expectation weren't satisfied, resistance. And then he was breaking it. And in many different ways. And then if the resistance is break, then you can learn. This is what Gitaji was saying to me. First surrender to me, then I can teach you something. But it's not that they wanted to humiliate you. They want that you were surrendering with all your resistance, then they could teach only. And unfortunately, sometimes it's important to place the students in the condition that, okay, this is your mental limitation because you don't want to see. Let go. And then you can see. But then as the world is very consumistic, okay, you are not giving me what I want, so I'm just changing. There are other millions of teachers. That's it. These people, they will never learn because they want just to do what they like. And what they like many times is not what they need.
Yes. David, how do we begin to bridge this gap between Iyengar yoga as it is perceived and Guruji's teachings?
I think we should be very sincere and honest with ourselves, and then try to go beyond this format, any kind. Iyengar yoga is only this, Iyengar yoga is only that. No, Iyengar yoga, if you had the chance to see Guruji, or there are so many records also. So also if you didn't see live, you can see recorded, and you can see that it was absolutely very much virtuoso and very much multitask. And so we should be respectful in that, and not being like a little bit selfish, because many times it's like the science now. It's very difficult to find someone 360 degrees. Everyone is specialized in something. In something can be also good, because if you are dedicating your full energy in some aspect, then perhaps you can be more proficient in that. But if you are looking from some other corner, you are specialized in that, but you are missing all the integrity of all the other things. So as Guruji was teaching in so many ways, and it's difficult, I understand, to learn all the aspects that he was teaching, but it's important to take all the integrity of the Iyengar yoga, not only what is fitting in our habit and in our likes or don't likes. Because I have to say, there are so many colleagues that are teaching only this frame. And then the idea that is passed is that Iyengar yoga is only that. So it's not nothing about that. It's big spectrum, and this big spectrum should be respected. And then, okay, depends what kind of student you have in the front, what kind of group. Okay, then can change. But the people should have in mind that the Iyengar yoga it's like a circle, and it's not like a spot.
Beautifully said, David. Beautifully said. Now, I know that you have been teaching on Zoom, and you've consistently been teaching on Zoom. Every time I go on Instagram, I see something else. You're posting some story of someone who's done your classes, and it looks so amazing. And I mean, even before that, I knew that you were traveling around and you were teaching in California, and you've just been sharing these teachings so generously. What's your teaching schedule like these days?
And in general, I'm teaching few beginners class, and the beginners classes are in double language, Italian and English, and I'm doing by myself both the language. And then I have few intermediates, and then I have one advanced, the Saturday night, Central European time. And then workshops that are organized, can be about therapy or can be about some particular topic. So it's kind of vast program.
So David, if people wanted to plug in and learn from you and study with you online, where can we find out more information to jump into your teachings?
Actually, it's possible to go on my website, davidmeloni.com, and then there is the advertisement of the different classes of workshop, and also online in the media, social media, you can see the advertisements that are going on all the time. So awesome. More specific in some topic on some other topic.
Awesome, David. Well, I will put that information down below in the description box so that our listeners and viewers can plug into your work and can start to practice with you and learn more from you, because I, just sitting here with you, have learned so much from you through this conversation, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers want to dive in and study with you a bit more.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to speak with you.
David, this was absolutely a treat for me to sit down and speak with you today, and I'm so honored and so happy to be able to learn from you in this way, and I'm truly speechless, because I have had so many things for me, so much of my own thought process confirmed through this conversation, but I've also had this deeper feeling of being even more deeply connected to the system by virtue of your example. So Thank you so much for the light that you hold, for the fire that you hold, for the virtuoso teachings that you hold. And thank you for being a light on Iyengar yoga in the world for so many of us.
Thank you very much.
And to those of our listeners and viewers out there, if this is your 100th time joining us here on the Michael Bryan podcast, or if this is time number 1, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for continuing to come and share in this virtual yoga loving and mindfulness space with us. I receive your encouragement, your support, your love, but most importantly, I receive your continued support. So if you want to continue to be a part of the magic and the momentum that we're building here on the Michael Bryan podcast, as always, please do subscribe to the podcast wherever you find us online, as well as like this amazing video, this interview between David Maloney and I. And as you know, share this interview with your other yoga loving and mindfulness loving friends, because more and more people around the world need to hear about these amazing teachers and their amazing work. So until next time, I'm your host, Michael A. Bryan, leaving you in peace and love and hope. Until we meet again, have a good one. Bye-bye. David Maloney.